Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and today I am back with another fantasy recommendations video that, to be honest, I will try to keep short because first of all I'm tired, second of all I still need to prepare because I'm going on vacation tomorrow for the next few days, which is why I'm pre-filming this, and third of all, I for the past 4 or 5 days have had the worst cough. I don't feel sick, I don't have a cold, I don't have anything, I just have this terrible cough that won't even let me sleep because I'm just coughing all the time, and by now my throat is sore from coughing and I hate it. I hate my life currently. Anyway, what are we doing today? Today, maybe you have guessed already from the books in my background, and you probably have definitely guessed already from the title of this video, but today I decided to sit down and to recommend you some adult fantasy books written by Black authors because, of course, it is currently Black History Month in the US as well as in Austria, as well as probably some other countries as well, but those are the 2 countries that I definitely know celebrate Black History Month right now. So yeah, let's get into it. I probably won't talk too long about each book because, as I said, I want to try to keep this video kind of short. Also, these books are in no particular order. I've had some of these books in other recommendations video previously as well, but I just, wanted to collect them together in this video. So the first book I have is A Master of Gin by Pete J. Clarke. This is so far a standalone novel, although there are, I'm not sure if there's 1 or 2 novellas in the same universe, set in the same universe, at least one of those, if there is 2, but one that I know of you can read for free on Tor's website, like the publisher's website. So, A Master of Gin by Pete J. Clarke. This is historical fantasy. It is set in like 1920s-ish Egypt in Cairo, and this is kind of a paranormal murder mystery type story. Our main character is a woman working for the, let me read it, the Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments and Supernatural Entities. And at the beginning of the story, members of the secret brotherhood are found murdered, and our main character is trying to find out who murdered them and what happened and what is going on. And so yeah, I just really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed our main character. Fatma is just perfect, chef's kiss. It's also sapphic, and the romance was just so good, and I can feel a cough going, like starting right now. That was a bad one. You know those coughs that just feel like your entire esophagus is just like jumping out of your mouth? That was the type of cough that was. I hate my life right now. I truly hate it. Anyway, a lot of elements in the story that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the historical fantasy setting that is, not North America or Europe. And yeah, I can just highly recommend it. I think I gave it like 4-ish stars. I don't know if I read this in 2021 when I didn't rate stuff or not. Probably. But yeah, it was like an almost 5-star for me. Next is a recent read, and that is Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James, which I read back in January. This is the first book in the series. I'm not sure what this series is called right now though, because once again, it doesn't tell you anywhere in the book or on the cover or anywhere. Like, seriously, publishers, just write it somewhere on the cover or on the spine. How hard can it be? Orbit does it as well. Like, just do that. Anyway, that little rant aside, I absolutely loved and adored this book. This is written by a queer Jamaican author who currently, I believe, lives in the US, and it is an adult high fantasy that is set in this world that is inspired by different African cultures. And we follow our main character, Tracker, who once again also is queer. I think, like, I believe most, if not all, the books on this list are gonna be queer. I'm not sure anymore about one of the books, but I still believe that one was queer as well. Oh well, like, welcome to my channel and to my reading, I guess. So we follow Tracker, and Tracker is, as his name suggests, a tracker. And one day he is told to go and track this boy, and that is what he does. And he does it with a few kind of strange companions, like a giant, a shape-shifting leopard, and a witch. And the thing that I really enjoyed about this book the most was the way this book was told, like the storytelling perspective of it, because it just reminded me a lot of different tales from different African cultures that I have heard or read or whatever over the course of my life. And I don't know, the storytelling in this book just reminded me a lot of traditional oral storytelling methods. Also, something that's very interesting about this is that almost no dialogue tags are used. So yeah, there's just a lot of very interesting stuff going on with the writing style and with the storytelling style, which I think will make this book not for everyone, but I do think it's definitely worth picking it up, especially if you're interested in different types of prose in books. Then I have a book that I by now already read a while back, and that is Master of Poisons by Andrea Hairston. This is also an adult high fantasy, as most of the books. Like, I think all the rest of the books on my list are adult high fantasy. Only A Master of Gin was historical fantasy. And this one, we have this empire or this kingdom that is kind of being encroached upon by this poisonous desert thing. And so the spy master of the ruler, emperor, king, I don't remember anymore if it was a kingdom or an empire, to be honest, is exiled, if I remember correctly, and sent to find a solution to this poison desert, and he's not allowed to come back until he finds a solution. And then aside from that, you also follow some other characters. There's a lot of queer characters in this one. And this one was another one of those books that I just found had a really, really interesting way of telling the story. I can't tell you that much about it anymore because it's been a while since I read it. I just know that I really enjoyed it. I do have a full review of this one, so I will leave that link down below, because obviously I filmed the review much closer to me actually reading the book, and it's been 3-ish years since I've done that, so yeah, but definitely really enjoyed this book. And if you're once again interested in picking up fantasy that's not talked about a lot, go for this one. So next I have a book that I so far will recommend the book, but I'm not necessarily sure yet if I will recommend the series. And the book I'm talking about is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. Rebecca Roanhorse, of course, is mostly talked about in the context that a lot of her books are centering Indigenous characters. However, Rebecca Roanhorse is both Black as well as Indigenous North American. Black Sun is the first book in the Between Earth and Sky series. I have already read the second book, which was Fevered Star, which kind of disappointed me. It was one of my most disappointing books last year, and there's once again a cough coming. So Fevered Star was one of my most disappointing books last year, so I'm not sure yet if I would recommend the series. However, I do think you can still read Black Sun as a standalone, and I do really love this first book. Black Sun is set in a world that is inspired by cultures from the pre-Columbian Americas, and basically we follow 3 different characters as they're preparing for a day. Well, some more consciously, some less consciously, but we follow 3 different characters as time is moving towards a day when it was prophesied that something was going to happen. That's all I really want to say, because I can like try to explain what the series is about a lot, but you have different characters that all have very different objectives, and it's kind of complicated. Overall though, really enjoyed this first book, mostly because I really love the character dynamics between some of the characters, and I just love some of the characters in general. I also found the world to be very vivid. Like, it's not overly explained, I don't think, but it's still like, for me, it's just very vivid how the world looks in my mind. And so yeah, I think I can still recommend this one as a standalone so far, kind of. Like, the second book isn't terrible, but it was a big disappointment for me. 3 more books to go. The next book I have is a debut from this year. It is The Final Strife by Sara El Arifi, which is an African-Arabian inspired high fantasy. This one is also a high fantasy that I think works particularly well if you're kind of trying to transition from YA fantasy to adult fantasy, because I do think in some aspects the writing style of this is still very YA inspired. However, the themes it looks at are way darker than you would usually see in YA. This one, also, once again, I don't want to tell you too much about the story here, but this one is kind of a failed chosen one trope subversion, in that we have our main character who like has been chosen by a rebellion to topple the empire by taking part in this competition that takes place, I think, every 10 or 20 years. And in this competition, basically the new rulers of the empire are chosen. However, she fails to sign up for the competition, so she ends up training someone else to win the competition. And it's really interesting. You have some very intense and very intricate character work. Once again, it's sapphic. I personally wasn't the biggest fan of the romance, but I do love the characters. Like, I love the characters as friends. I don't necessarily love them as romantic partners. I would put it like that. But yeah, it's a really strong start to a new series. The second book, The Battle Drum, comes out, I believe, this summer. So if you want to get started and get caught up to the series, why not start it now, I guess? So you can then just pick up the second book once it comes out and read it right away. So yeah, once again, I also do have a full review of this one, so I will leave that link down below. I also have a full review of Black Sun, by the way. Like, I will leave all the reviews that I have down below. So next I have a book that, honestly, I cannot remember that much about it, but I still want to mention it because I do believe it's a really good book. It just, I read it in a year where I read 200 books, and it just went under with those 200 books for some reason, because I read it at the wrong time. And the book I'm talking about is Son of the Storm by Sue Davis Okungbowa, which is the first book in the Nameless Republic. The second book comes out also, I believe, this summer. No, this November is when the second book comes out. I will definitely reread this before then. Once again, adult high fantasy inspired by different African cultures, mostly Nigerian cultures, because that is where the author is originally from. However, he does state that Nigeria isn't the only, like, Nigerian cultures aren't the only inspiration he took for this book. So yeah, I don't really have that much more to say about this book right now. However, I will probably have to say more about it once I reread it again, and I just, as I said, wanted to have it mentioned in this video. And then the last book I have is The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. This is also another first book where the sequel comes out this year, although quite a bit sooner. I believe the sequel comes out in March. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong though. And it's called The Faithless. The series is called The Magic of the Lost. And in this series we follow two characters. One is technically heir to the throne of this colonial empire. The other one is someone who has been taken from one of the colonies as a child to be trained as a soldier for the empire. Now, at the beginning of the stories, she is sent back to her home with a whole bunch of other conscripts to basically beat down a rebellion. And so she's kind of starting to have to deal with like split loyalties and stuff. And there's also a really good toxic sapphic romance that it's so good. It's so good. I don't support it, but I really enjoyed the romance in this one. I said I didn't enjoy the romance in some of the other books here. I really enjoyed the romance in this one. And so yeah, if you're interested in reading more decolonial type fantasy, I think this one is definitely one of the places where you can start with that. And so yeah, that was a very quick fire video of some Black adult high fantasy book recommendations that I have for you. Tell me in the comments down below. Did you pick up some new books for your TBR with this video, or have you maybe read some of these books already, and what were your thoughts on them? If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media as well as to my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where I read one adult high fantasy book written by a woman or genderqueer person per month, will be left linked down below, so go and check those out, and I hope I'll see you very soon. Bye!